One of the greatest problems we face with is, I dare say, I like to avoid politics, but this is NEPA. You see, they take off the light arbitrarily. Sometimes they take off the lights, and very soon the light comes on. So, in fact, I have given instructions to the operators here that anytime NEPA goes, they should dive towards the switch around there and pull off the switch. Taking off the light doesn't do much damage to the computer, but taking it off and switching it off suddenly does a lot of damage to the computer.
My name is Funke Amole. Well, it's nice to be a computer science student. Speak, for instance, we are programming if we are recording on the terminals and NEPA fails, and we haven't created source. That means all the things we have entered in the terminals will forgo it. That's it. So that means there are sometimes we have to stay in the terminal room or the machine room, just waiting for the NEPA.
The documentary you're about to watch focused on the history and the advent of computer into Nigeria. It also dealt with the basic concept of computer in relation to its use in the day-to-day activities geared towards the growth of national development. The documentary also looked into the shortcomings and problems surrounding the effective application of computer in Nigeria. The early electronic computers were developed at a time in history of the United States of America when the vacuum tube was a prevalent electronic device. They operated on the principle of burning themselves out, requiring significant amounts of power in the process. Early computers occupied entire buildings and demanded heavy-duty cooling apparatus to keep the operating temperature within the specified tolerance. The first fully electronic digital computer was built in the United States of America and dates back only to the end of World War II. The arrival of the transistor in 1950 in the electronics world can be hailed as a turning point in the design of many electronic devices, including the computer. Being an obviously superior replacement for the vacuum tube, the transistor was quickly incorporated into the design of computer. This led to faster, smaller, and cooler computers. However, computers were still composed of discrete parts. Transistors, diodes, resistors, and capacitors were connected together on printed boards and plugged into their respective sockets within the computer. A few years later, the technology developed that allowed manufacturers in the United States to build solid-state devices containing several components, all on the same chip. This was an excellent development for the computer industry, since the large number of switching circuits formerly constructed from discrete components could now be found in a few integrated circuits. These ICs became the foundation for the pocket calculator, and in less than 2 years, the price for an 8-digit electronic calculator was cut in half. The evolution of solid-state technology skyrocketed as more and more types of integrated circuit devices became available. The inevitable combining of the computer circuits into one IC chip was to produce the first of the so-called microprocessors in the early 1970s. The first of the microprocessors was not really what one could call a computer. It was programmable, however within a limited range, and therefore had all the attributes of the larger machines. Within 1 year, these first models were already obsoleted by the development of even more sophisticated versions of microprocessors. The present-day microprocessor is quite capable of being used as the heart of a general-purpose computing system. The fact that it is entirely self-contained is one of a little consequence to the programmer, but it means ease of maintenance and repair. Looking ahead at the computer industry in the United States sees pure gold. There are 83 million US homes with television sets, 54 million white-collar workers, 26 million professionals, and 4 million small businesses. Computer salesmen are only hiring every one of them. Estimates for the number of personal computers in use by the end of the century run as high as 80 million, The sales figures are awesome and will become more so. For example, in 1980, some 24 firms sold 724,000 personal computers for 2.5 billion naira. The following year, 20 more companies joined the stampede, including giant IBM, and sales doubled to 1.4 million units at just a little over 3 billion naira. When the figures came in for 1982, according to DataQuest, a California research firm sales release, more than 100 companies sold 2.8 million units for 5.5 billion naira. Computer, as many experts believe, is the extension of man's thinking, or the instruments which carry out the instructions given them by men, and in respect can calculate faster than any man and can do essentially nothing qualitatively different than any mathematically trained person can do much slower. Whatever the simplicity or the complexity of computer operations, the introduction of the machine in Nigeria did not start until the early 60s, when the IBM World Trade Corporation first saw Nigeria as a nation of economic boom. The company's main interest was in selling business machines such as key punch, accounting machines, and computers in Africa, and in particular Nigeria. But at that time, there were not enough personnel to work in the installations that would result from IBM's venture. So IBM World Trade Corporation decided in 1964 to build, equip, and finance an African Education Center at the University of Ibadan, a center that later gave back to the University of Ibadan Computing Center. The IBM's venture not only became the first computer installation in Nigeria, but also in the whole of Africa. Mr. R.A. Joshua, who is presently the UI's Assistant Chief System Programmer, was one of 25 candidates selected by IBM throughout Africa to learn the operation of the IBM's computers at the University of Ibadan. He noted that computers at that time was a giant machine that does all its work but invisibly behind the closed doors of a special climate-controlled room. Mr. Kehinde Ogumala, a system engineer at the joint computer company JKK, spoke further on the advent of computer into Nigeria.
Computers started at a rather low keynote in the country, and this dated as far back as say some 15 years ago, really. And well, judging from what we observe today, the development has not been too slow, really. It has been fair enough, and people are now coming to appreciate, the need for computers the more. Actually, the way it started, well, like the big business concerns, these are the people that actually brought the idea of computers, right, to the people, for the first time, and right now it's spreading. In conjunction with UAC, for instance, IBM introduced computers into this country, right, and right now there are quite a lot of dealers. In fact, we have various brands of computers being marketed in the country today, right. We have such computers as Data General, we have IBM itself, we have ICL, we have the bureaus, we have the cashiers. In fact, quite a lot of computers in the country today.
So you would say the development is very encouraging, and you think the root is what is leading to the growth of that industry here? Honestly,
I would think the development is very, very encouraging. And in fact, from our observation this last few months, the industry is actually growing. And people, especially small-scale businessmen, are actually buying the idea of computer.
Computers called mainframes are still very much around at the University of Ibadan Computing Center. The analysis of the 1963 Nigerian population census and the compensation payable to owners of land acquired by RRTA at T.S.O.S, Ibadan were some of such jobs handled and run on the University of Ibadan Computing Center. The center had also been able to provide computing and advisory services to customers outside, in addition to its present services to all academic departments with the university. The computing center gave back to the Department of Computer Science at the University of Ibadan. Consequently, with the advent of computer dealers in Nigeria, various institutions of higher learning in Nigeria started offering computer courses to their students. Perhaps this question should have been asked first. What is a computer basic concept? Usually, 5 main parts are found in one form or another in every digital computer, whether it is the massive system used by an insurance company to keep track of its premiums or a microcomputer that is used to control a model aircraft. These 5 main ingredients are the central processing unit, CPU, the memory, the input-output devices, input and output interfaces, and the program. Every computer has some sort of central processing unit, CPU, which is the brain of the computing machine. The central processing unit is a combination of several parts interconnected in such a way as to permit certain logical operation to be performed. Computers of 2 decades ago required a fairly large enclosure to house the components of their CPUs. Today, the microcomputer uses a CPU that is contained in an LSI, that is, large-scale integration chip. This is the microprocessor, which by itself is not a computer, but is a main component in any microcomputer. As mentioned earlier, the CPU executes a sequence of instructions, which is called a program, in order to fulfill some processing goal. Since the CPU can deal with only one instruction at any given time, there must be a place to store all of the instructions of the program and to fetch them one at a time for execution. This is the primary use of memory by the computer to store the program instructions. The memory may also hold data. In some cases, large tables of data are stored in the memory in order that they may be used as a reference by some program during execution. Whether used for instructions or data, the memory is utilized in the same way for both. Although the basic reasons for memory and the ways that memory is utilized are the same for both instructions and data, there are several different types of memory, each offering a special feature for the users. Forms of information may be entered into the computer, depending upon the application and the volume of information that is likely to be involved. There are several machines that can be connected to a computer. These machines that can be connected to a computer can be operated by humans. The machine translates the operations into signals that can be interpreted by the computer. Some of these devices translate the signals generated by the computer into a human language. These machines are called input-output devices, or more simply, I/O devices. It is not always necessary that the computer be connected to some human interface. In many applications, the computer is used as a controller of other machines. Some applications involve several computers communicating with each other. In all cases, however, some kind of an interface with the world is necessary. It may be as simple as 2 wires used to turn something on and off, or it may be as complex as several dozen video monitors giving flight information to passengers at the airport. The I/O devices, however, cannot simply be plugged into the computer and be expected to work. There is a significant amount of interfacing that must be done between machine and machine. For example, one of the most essential parts of I/O interfacing is that of controlling the device. If we are using a magnetic tape storage device with a computer, we will want to be able to start and stop the tape transport mechanism at will, usually under control of programming. The computer has a limited inability to send and receive information on the data lines. In this case, the I/O interface must also contain circuitry that can buffer or temporarily store the information sent from the computer so that it can be modified in some way to make it usable by the device. Power as a machine lies in the fact that it can be programmed to perform various functions at the will of the user. This is the most distinct difference between the computer and any other sophisticated machine that has been created by man. As earlier mentioned, the computer is capable of executing only one instruction at a time, and it therefore requires a memory of some sort in which to store the complete set of instructions that make up the program. The amount of memory that is necessary to store the program depends on several factors pertaining to the complexity of the program and the amount of memory necessary to store data used by the program. Professor F.B.A Giwa, Director of the University of Ibadan Computing Center, and Mrs. A.O. Fakwarusi, a programmer, claimed that the computer has to be told what to do through programming.
Programming is how you communicate with the computer. There are various types of programming. We have the most elementary, which is what we call the machine language. Very, very difficult to program in the machine language. There is what we call there's a chip, an electronic device in the computer, which does certain things depending on the arrangement of a series of zeros and ones which we apply onto it. Now, this chip responds to what we call the machine language. Machine language involves very detailed, simple instructions. Example could be, take the information from register A, add it to register B, store it in register C. Another could be, take information from register A, and it with register B. When we say and, it means wherever there are two things with one, you make it one. If one of them is zero, you make it zero. Okay? You give these simple instructions. These detailed, simple instructions are what we call machine language, and this is what really makes the computer work. As an example, if you want to do simple subtraction, you have to give quite a number of simple instructions to the computer. Please mind you, we are still talking of machine language, which, as far as the average programmer is concerned in this country, is not interested in the machine language. I will go to the high-level language in a moment. But meanwhile, let me show you a publication which gives a sort of thing which you expect when you are doing a simple subtraction. Look at this here. All these instructions which you have from here, right down here, up to here, are instructions just to do simple subtraction. You see? Now, clearly, it is not convenient for us to have to write all this anytime we want to do simple instructions. So we have a high-level language in which you just say A minus B. The moment that the computer reads this minus, it goes to this particular program and does the various single steps. So the high-level languages are a sort of shorthand way of doing the machine languages. Okay. Now we have different types of languages. We have the basic. This one is actually written in BASIC, which is what you find in most microcomputers. We have Fortran, we have COBOL, we have RPG. All these are high-level languages. This is the program we use in this university. Most of us in this university use Fortran. The business people use COBOL. In fact, if you can write both Fortran and COBOL, you are quite okay. There is nothing you cannot do. As a matter of fact, I even feel that once you can write Fortran, you can do any sort of programming. But this is high-level language.
I do a lot of programming. When the data comes in, then we send this to the coders, the code. As for the programming, I do the coding and then give to the key punch operators to punch. When these are punched, then they are put into the card reader, read into the machine. Well, most of the time one has to correct the program, so we call that compilation of the program to see that it is error-free, that is, the syntax of the language is okay. And then we do a test run with some sample data. When we are satisfied, then we put in the main data.
Tell us of what importance is this programming to computer?
Well, I don't know. The computer cannot work without the programs.
How?
But you cannot just put in your data without telling the machine what you want to do with the data. It is the program that supervises the work. It tells the machine what to do.
Execution of this program consists of taking one instruction at a time from the memory and performing the operation that it specifies. One fact that cannot be overstressed is that regardless of the complexity of the various electronic devices that the computer comprises, the computer is nothing more than an expensive toy unless there is a purpose for its existence and a program that will cause the purpose to be realized. It is the program consisting of the individual instructions arranged in order that they are to be performed that will make the computer a useful tool to many. There are many different types of programs and programming systems, all of which are referred to as software, as opposed to the electronic and mechanical elements of the computer or the hardware. Some of these programs are used to accomplish a particular computing goal, such as to balance the checkbook or compute the area of cycles. Beyond the computer hardware lies the virtually limitless market for software, all those pre-recorded programs that tell the willing but mindless computer what to do. Professor Giwa said that if the basic concepts are followed, then computer can be put to work. This he explained.
The machine consists of one, perhaps the most important unit, and that is the central processing unit, which is the brain of the machine. I don't intend to go into the electronics because this will take a lot of time. This central processing unit controls the various peripherals attached to the machine. The first peripheral I shall discuss is the card reader. We feed information to the computer via the card reader. As the cards are read by the card reader, the information goes via a number of electrical connections into the CPU. The CPU assimilates this information and decides what to do with the information depending on what is on the cards. It is possible that the program on the cards may ask for the use of one of the other peripherals. Example is the tape drive, which stores a lot of information. The tape drive here can store, this one here, can store up to about 40 million bytes of information. A byte of information is a character. Letter A is a character, letter B is a character, a space is a character. Changing from one line to the other is another character. So this one can store about 40 million bytes of such information. It is also possible that the program might like to access information or put some information into the big disk drives which you have over there. Each of them can store up to about 1 million bytes of information. 100 million bytes of information, okay? There are 4 of them, which means they can store up to 400 million bytes. The central processing unit has got a very fast storage. You require very fast storage when you are running your program. This fast storage, it is in the fast storage that the programs are run, things change very, very rapidly. However, sometimes the information that the CPU can store is not adequate. That is the reason why you require these backup storages. So the CPU will direct whatever information it doesn't require immediately to any of this large storage. And when it needs them, it will recall them. Well, we have discussed how the information is fed into the computer. But as you will expect, whatever information you feed into the computer, you want to see your final output. That is the purpose of this printer. Once again, it is the CPU that will direct, based on the program, that will direct the printer whether to print or not to print. It is also the CPU. At times, you will also want some information back on cards. You load with cards. Sometimes you want information on cards. Okay? It is also the CPU that will direct the card printer right behind you, Mr. Onibokun, to do the necessary printing. This, in short, is how the computer operates. There's only one thing I have not talked about. When you are making use of the computer wants to tell you, load a particular tape. It wants to tell you, load a particular disk on the disk drive. The only way this particular computer can communicate with us is via the console, and that is why we require the computer operators. The computer operators talk to the computer via the console there, and the computer talks back to them via the console there. However, when you are talking of some other computers like microcomputers, you have the screen from which you can communicate with the computer.
The personal computer is a machine with formidable capabilities for tabulating, modeling, or recording. Those capabilities can be multiplied almost indefinitely by plugging it into a network of other computers. One question needs to be asked. Are majority Nigerians aware of the products? A random survey revealed that 90% of the populace have little or no knowledge of the products nor its application.
My name is Onibokun. I know. As far as I'm concerned, computer is a sort of machine that is used in doing some things.
Other than that?
No.
You don't know anything?
My name is Adeolu. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I can say I know little or nothing about computer. But a roommate of mine usually go to the computer class. We come with some whether programming or I don't know how you do call it. All I know is that I do some, we collect some data and then print it on some form. Then you say this are the how. No, but I don't know how they do the processing of it. But I just have little or nothing about it.
Well, my name is Kolawole Agbola. Practically, I don't know anything. I don't know much about computer. I only read about computer in textbooks and probably the elementary one we are used to. That is like calculator, I think. But as regarding the advanced computers, I don't know much about computer. Well, people say they use computer for processing information and data, but I've not seen any practically or handled it myself.
S.A. Allah. What I know is how they are making use of them in the industries, companies, and even we have in some insurance company like Royal Exchange or so in Lagos, we have a computer operation there. Though computer, as it is in Nigeria, is not widely used because of the involvement. The machinery and the expenses and servicing. So it's very costly. And before a company can be involved in a computer operation or using the computer as a means of working system, it has to be a very viable company which can avoid some millions of naira to maintain it.
My name is Mr. Ayeni. About computer, I don't know anything about computer at all. Maybe you can even tell me what, maybe you have the idea. I don't have any idea about computer.
Problem of introducing computers to the public is importation restriction on it by the federal government. Only few dealers are licensed to import computers into the country. Even those dealers who sell them claimed that the majority of people don't understand it and so scared to death of it, argued one computer dealer.
Computers are not expensive overseas. The government hasn't made a priority, just like in Japan or Korea, where they say, oh, electronics and computer, we do everything to acquire technology. The government has not made a priority to acquire computer technology. It's as difficult, even more difficult, to bring in computer into this country. And so what do? There's nothing one can do about it. If it's not cheap, people are not going to buy it. If computer at the same price here in Nigeria as in the US, they wouldn't buy it. It was only when they start going on under the 1,000 for the home computer rate that it becomes what everybody can afford, and nearly all homes are patronizing.
But whether we like it or not, Nigerians and foreign investors in Nigeria are now investing on computers. Private firms like F.B.A Johnson and banks had already installed their computers, while the University Teaching Hospital in Ibadan is no exception. The National Electric Power Authority, NEPA, has also gone all out for computer. Other companies like Sonel Bonnet, building and construction company, and Pi Associates provide other examples of computer owners. Just as the computer is changing the way work is done in homes, offices, so it is revolutionizing the office. Routine tasks like managing payrolls and checking inventories have long since been turned over to computers in Nigeria, concluded Professor F.B.A Giwa.
The amount of work the computer can do continuously is the work which about 2 million people will be able to do continuously, provided the 2 million people will never get tired. Bear in mind that the computer does not get tired.
In 1 hour, can you be specific? Say, using 1 hour, say a work done in 1 hour compared to what people...
That is, the work the computer can do in 1 hour is the same as what 1 million people can do in 1 hour. If we look at it in another way, the work the computer can do in 1 hour is the work which an individual will never be able to finish in his lifetime.
Professor Olulonga of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Ibadan believes that the personal computer can send letters at the speed of light, diagnose a sick puddle, custom tailor an insurance program in minutes, test recipes for beer, and many more.
There are so many applications into which the computer can be useful. It can be used in financial analysis. It could be used to help the government to update its tax database. In fact, at the moment, I don't think many of the governments know how many taxable people they have and how much they should be charged for taxation. It is quite possible that a database can be set up, and therefore every year you need to update this database, and this could help the government in increasing its internal revenue. When you go to the bank, just to check your balance may take you 30 minutes or more, and it sometimes takes you up to 2 or 3 hours to get your money out of the bank. Now, if you have a computer system in the bank, all these operations can take much less time, and the customers will be more satisfied, and in fact, more customers will come in because of the satisfactory service in the bank.
Dr. Oluwani, who owned an Apple II computer, concluded that personal computers are so cheap that if allowed to pour into the country, it could swing our dwindling economy to an upward direction.
Both the state governments and the federal government
can profit by using the computer. For instance, we've been told about the Benue State, which has eliminated ghost teachers. It's not easy to keep records by hand, any records, whether it's the census or voters register or economic planning or whatever the custom duties and things like that. With a computer, the record is there. Once you set the record, all you do is to add to it. You never have to repeat the same thing twice. Once you have the register this year, you just keep on adding to it. You are updating it, what we say in computer field. You are updating the record, and that's much easier. And a simple case is the telephone directory. Once you've done it, any new subscriber is just added on. And if someone wants to go out, you take it off. And it's not like typing the whole thing all over again. You just update it. So you save yourself a tremendous amount of money. And the government can do that, save a lot of money. But in the meantime, one byproduct is that a lot of people will be trained in this field. And with the premises that we have honest experts, then the country stands to benefit tremendously.
Using census and voters register, can you give us example of how best computer could be used?
Well, it's unfortunate that something like census or voters register list have to be done abroad. This is unfortunate. There are people capable in this country who can handle it, and we know the country. For instance, I know where Sokoto is. If you take it to London, somebody doesn't know where Sokoto is.
The most visible aspect of the computer revolution, the video game, which is least significant. According to some estimates, more than half of all personal computers bought for home use in Nigeria are devoted mainly for games. Computer enthusiasts argue that these games have educational value by teaching logic or vocabulary or something. Some are even used for medical therapy. Probably the most important effect of these games, however, is that it is both pleasant and easy to operate. What computer bots call user-friendly. But the essential element in this sense of inevitability is the way in which the young take to computers, not as just another obligation imposed by adult society, but as a game, a pleasure, a tool, a system that fits naturally into their lives. Unlike anyone over 40, these children are grown up with television screens. The computer is a screen that responds to them. Look to a machine that can be programmed to respond the way they want it to. That is power. Here, Dr. and Mrs. Olafe's children, Kemi and Jide, are enjoying their parents' personal Apple II computer after school. Get another one, please.
Yeah, we know. This is unfair.
So include the machine. from games. The two things that the computer does best have wide implications, but are quite basic. One is simply computation, manipulating thousands of numbers per second. The other is the ability to store, sort through, and rapidly retrieve immense amount of information. The standard home computer is sold only to somebody who wants one, but the same machine can seem menacing when it appears in office. Even if all the technical and intellectual problems can be solved, there are major social problems inherent in the computer revolution. The most obvious is unemployment, argued a secretary who believed the basic purpose of commercial computer action is to get more work done by fewer people, and that the unemployment rate in Nigeria, which stands at nearly 60%, may get even worse if the new technology is given a chance in Nigeria.
As I see it today in Nigeria, we are underdeveloped. Unemployment is rising a bit. If computer is coming up similarly, the unemployment will be rising too, because computer seems to be taking over job from human beings. So what I will advise is that though it's a very modern way of working, but we have to hold it back a bit and make sure we have our men at work before we put in computer system.
But many computer owners disagreed. Their assertion being that all unemployed workers can be retrained even though the training programs are not high on the nation's agenda. Some argued that many new jobs require an aptitude in using computers, and the retraining needed to use them will have to be repeated as the technology keeps improving.
In reality, it doesn't create unemployment. Instead, it provides more employment in the sense that if, for instance, an organization, decides to acquire a computer, okay, for sure, the organization will require some personnel to operate the computer. Okay. Now, most often it requires the training, some staff. Quite a lot of staffs. Is training these staffs, and in fact, this is even given that the job dynamism. That is the will to want to work the more. To be more interested in the work. For the fact that one gets new training, okay, to work with a new system, okay, and with a brighter prospect. So in actual fact, it doesn't create unemployment, rather it increases, employment.
You can't use computer without people. Computer is no magic machine. You see, using a computer, you have to provide people to use the computer itself. And no matter how, if you say you are going to lay some people off, because the computer is there, you see, the operations, the manipulations, something in terms of programming, and you see, other uses into which you can make use of the computer, requires different status of people. Like you need operator, you need a programmer, you need analyst, and so on. In one word, I don't share the same belief.
Professor Longe argued that the situation may not necessarily increase unemployment.
Well, this is a popular misbelief. You find that when a computer is introduced into an organization, rather than decrease the number of jobs, you may find that, in fact, the number of people who are employed are increased, because you have to have people who punch the cards, or who will be attending to the machines, and who will be doing all kinds of work. Although they are specialized work, they increase the number of workers in the organization. So it's not necessarily true that when a computer comes to an organization, a lot of people lose their jobs.
Although computer owners claimed that the advent of computer into Nigeria would not create unemployment, still, computer faces other problems in the country, as users of various categories lodged this complaint.
One of the greatest problems we face with is, I like to avoid politics, but this is NEPA. You see, they take off the light arbitrarily. Sometimes they take off the lights, and very soon the light comes on. So in fact, I have given instructions to the operators here that anytime NEPA goes, they should dive towards the switch around there and pull off the switch. Taking off the light doesn't do much damage to the computer, but taking it off and switching it off suddenly does a lot of damage to the computer.
My name is Funke Amole. Well, it's nice to be a computer science student. To speak, for instance, we are programming if we are recording on the terminals and NEPA fails, and we haven't created T.S.O.S. That means all the things we have entered in the terminals will forgo it. That's it. So that means there are sometimes we have to stay in the terminal room or the machine room, just waiting for the NEPA. Well, the course itself consumes time. So most of the time we have to be here. We have to be around here. In most cases, I will have to leave my room around 7 o'clock in the morning and get back to the room as late as 9 o'clock in the evening.
More serious is the enormous cost of computers in this country. An average mini computer that costs between 20 to 30,000 naira in the United States costs nothing less than 100 to 150,000 naira in Nigeria. A difference of about 80 to 120,000 more in Nigeria than in the USA. These many call a rip-off. Many buyers are even saying that many dealers have seized the opportunity of the import restriction on computers to the country to make more than 500% profit. Many also complain that some dealers even make more profits through maintenance of these equipment. These, Professor Giwa says, require urgent attention.
If I had my way, I will ask the government to lift the ban on microcomputers so that microcomputers can flood the country. There is a number of crooked things going on in this country. There are people championing causes when in fact they are crooked. You see, there are quite a number of people who claim to be dealers in microcomputers. They are no more than a market woman, because they don't even understand these machines. All they want is to make money out of it. If you are sincerely interested in microcomputers, the money is not primary. The money is in fact secondary. I have seen microcomputers that will cost about $20,000 in the United States, and people sell this for $70,000. This is really very sad. They are playing on the intelligence of people. And when they install these machines are not working. They don't even know what to do. I don't want to give examples because, anyway, you must have known some of this. Well, this is one problem. The big computers, unfortunately, you require special training to be able to handle these big computers. You buy a big computer from a company like the IBM, you really have to use the IBM people in order to service these big computers. This is one of the disadvantages of these big computers. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why I keep recommending microcomputers.
To some of the dealers in the country, the exorbitant price of computers was as a result of import duties paid on them.
I'm engineer Mrs. K.O. Mushola, Managing Director, Audit of Africa Limited. As at the moment in Nigeria, I think we have over 50 dealers marketing various computers. And most of these prices are controlled by the manufacturers. In our own case, we have specific prices. We have a limit as to what price we have to quote on the various models. So to say that we try to take advantage of the fact that the market is not competitive is not really true. Most of us are guided by the manufacturers' prices. Now the fact that we have to, the only markup we put on the prices as compared to the United States prices is the duty we pay on the duty we pay and the freight charges, and of course the bank charges on the letter of credit. Apart from that, we don't go out of our way to put any other prices on the computer.
We feel that the cost, the way we have it in this country today, it's not that bad. Judging from a lot of problems these dealers undergo to be able to bring these systems to the country. We all know what the situation is with the economy as of now. consignments that should normally have come, by ship, now come by air. Okay, and this is additional cost anyway.
Depends on how you set up the system. If you don't control the cost very well, the consulting fee can be a runaway cost, because the consultant will charge for the system analysis, system specification, feasibility, and whatever initialization fees and things like that. Those can be a runaway cost. That if somebody tells you the breakdown of the system, you don't really know how the package was arrived at.
To members of the public who intends purchasing computers in the nearest future, what recommendations are suggested? Putting all odds into consideration, experts in the field had this to say.
The way out of it is to make sure that you buy your computers, you don't loan computers. Make up your mind, okay, as to what your needs will be, it's a project in 5 years. Okay, then buy a computer that will do your work for you, say up to your 7-year need. So you know that for the next 7 years you're covered. Now, before you pay, make an agreement. Okay, most of these many computer makers have courses to train technicians, to train system managers. Send your people out to work on that particular machine at the manufacturer's office or factory. Now, once those people are back, they will be the ones maintaining your equipment for you. You cannot sign maintenance agreement with a company in Massachusetts. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm Jose Cabana. I work for DPMS, which is Data Processing Maintenance Services. Well, our main problems are caused normally to power off caused by NEPA. These machines are not meant to take power off just at any time. Right? There's a power off sequence so that the voltages go off at the right time. And cutting them off all of a sudden damages them. And that's our main problem. Then when we come to service them, we have the same problem that most of the time is wasted because we can't work because NEPA is not available. And, most of the customers have to have generators to keep them going. The Nigerian engineers are very good. Actually, I reckon all they need is that little bit of experience.
Computers that people need are not those that cost 100,000 or 20,000. A personal computer that you need for your business, a small business or your office, could cost just in the neighborhood of 2,000 naira. And most businesses in Nigeria can afford that. The literature with the computer will come with it. So even if you don't know anything, those of us who are familiar with it will be glad to show or install one for any small businessman who wants to use it.
Of computer into Nigeria raises a fundamental and sometimes menacing question. Will the computer change the very nature of human thought? And if so, for better or for worse? The answer is simple. Computers do not think, but they do simulate many of the processes of human brain, remembering, comparing, and analyzing. And as people rely on the computer to do things that they used to do inside their heads, what happens to their heads? Will the computer's ability to do routine work mean that human thinking will shift to a higher level? The computer may make a lot of learning as unnecessary as memorizing the multiplication tables. But if dictionaries stored in the computer's memory can easily correct any spelling mistakes, what is the point of learning to spell? And if the mind is freed from intellectual routine, will it raise in pursuit of important ideas, or lazily spend its time on more video games? In the large perspective, the entire world will never be the same. The effect of computer machines on Nigeria is more uncertain. Some experts argue that computers will, if anything, widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. But the prophet of high technology believes the computer is so cheap and so powerful that it could enable underdeveloped nations to bypass the whole industrial revolution.